Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Buddies. I'm Steven Miranda.
I'm Jeff Ellis, and I'm one of the buddies.
And we're your buddies. That's right, bringing you fantasy football information. Jeffrey, why don't we tell the folks what this show is going to bring?
Well, what this show is all about, we're going to be your buddies throughout the 2011 season. Before the season starts, you can count on us to talk to you about how and when to hold your draft. We're going to give you draft advice, lots of help there. We're going to provide lots of lists online. If you go out to our website, NFLRNR.com, we're going to have lists for you.
Yes.
We're going to have my most favorite feature, Steven. Tell people about fantasy football for James.
Fantasy football for James. James is our video engineer, and he's never played a single year of fantasy football. This will be his first season, so he's what you might call a noob.
You might call him an uber noob. It is just recently, here's how uber noob. These fine helmets of the AFC and the NFC, respectively, it is just in the last week that James has been able to identify every single team without making a mistake.
Yes, so through these shows and the segment Fantasy Football for James, just another way of saying fantasy football for noobs, we're going to show you how to get it done, how to play fantasy football, where to play fantasy football, and if you have any questions, we'll answer those as well.
Absolutely. You want to get out on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, hit us up with your questions. And once the season starts, we're going to have waiver wire help for you. We're going to come at you multiple times a week with waiver wire pickups. We're going to have the trade help.
Weekly player rankings where we give you a list of basically which players are going to have good weeks and which ones aren't. And, yeah, trade help. If you've got issues with a trade, someone wants to give me Steven Jackson for Arian Foster, I would probably tell you not to take that trade. But, stuff like that.
That's just me. But Arian Foster, just to be one of the big breaking items is that he has a MCL injury.
He had a torn meniscus all throughout last season. He played with the torn meniscus, didn't tell anyone about it. But he still put up over 1,600 yards rushing and was the league's NFL leading rusher.
I'm sure he's enjoyed this time off immensely to try and heal that meniscus. So that's what we're going to be doing here as your fantasy football buddies. You can think of us as your true friends.
Yes,
true friends in the NFL.
Hermanos.
Even though we've never met. So let's talk about one of the most important things for fantasy football players. I play fantasy football all the time. What is this lockout meant for fantasy football players?
Yes, the lockout. Well, here's what it means. Basically, the lockout really has nothing to do with fantasy football to a point where, obviously it's not affecting anything until games start being missed in the National Football League.
Well, obviously that's not going to happen, Steven. We're going to get a deal done this week.
Hopefully. But still, here are some of the things that you should know about what you should be doing to prepare for your fantasy football. And one is prepare. Prepare early. If you don't have an initial cheat sheet based on the current rosters right now in the NFL,
you're behind.
You are behind. You need to get that as soon as possible. And you know what? Within the next couple of days, the Fantasy Football Buddies are going to put out that initial cheat sheet for you.
Looking forward to that. And let me tell you the reason you're going to need this cheat sheet, because once labor peace is found, which is expected in the next 3, 4, 5 days at the latest, what's expected is that teams are going to be able to have private negotiations with their own players that are restricted free agents, unrestricted free agents this weekend. And free agency is expected to open in full on Monday. And once that happens, the chaos is going to be unbelievable. The league office alone, Stephen, we're not a news show. We're about fantasy football. But what the league office has to approve every single one of those transactions, and there is set to be 3,000 of them before opening day.
So what that means for you as a fantasy football player, be flexible. You got to be flexible, because once the lockout ends, players are going to move from team to team and free agency, and they're going to be all over the place. And look, it matters where a player plays. Think of Kevin Kolb, for example. If the Kevin Kolb of the Philadelphia Eagles, if he stays with Philadelphia, then he's nothing more than a handcuff to Michael Vick. You draft Michael Vick as your quarterback, you better get Kevin Kolb as your backup. But
in the 11th round,
if he gets traded to the Arizona Cardinals, saying now he's teamed up with Larry Fitzgerald, Kevin Kolb is a quarterback you want to go after in the middle tier rounds. He's going to be a top 15 quarterback. That is important, and that's how the lockout comes into play.
I'm going to say it's really important. Do not rely on rookies for this season. You might want to look, you're going to want on the waiver wire, you're going to want to pick them up as the season progresses.
Wow.
But they're going to be worked into systems much more slowly because they have not had the time to prepare. They have not had playbooks. They have not had the OTAs. They have not had the off-season programs to work with coaches and things like that. So you want to go more veteran-heavy this year more than other seasons.
Mini camps, rookie camps, OTAs, they've had none of this. They've been keeping themselves in shape, but they're not ready to be integrated into their football seasons. Remember rookies last year that didn't get picked in the draft, Jeffrey? Wide receiver Mike Williams of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, LeGarrette Blount. Those guys were on the waiver wire, and these guys this year will be on waiver wires that you can, if they start producing, go out and snatch.
Steven, everybody was jumping all over Ryan Matthews last year in the early rounds. I think he went 22nd or 25th overall last year. And what happened with Ryan Matthews? That was last year. This year, there's less preparation time than there's ever been in the history of the league. So do the math, people. You're going to go a little bit more heavy towards veterans.
Right. Then the big thing with this lockout, injuries are going to happen, okay? They're going to happen because, well, they haven't been working as hard as they've been working in normal off seasons.
When they've been working together and they have not been hitting because they're afraid of getting hurt, they're afraid of injury, so they have not been in full pads. They have not been making full contact.
So be prepared to make adjustments when injuries occur. Remember last year, Ben Tate gets hurt for the Houston Texans, and that really changed how the Houston Texans relied on Arian Foster.
Absolutely.
If you don't think that had any change in how Arian Foster and his value gained throughout the season, I drafted the first week of August and got Arian Foster in the 8th round. But then when we later on in the season, I drafted at the end of August, I had to take him in the 2nd round. That's how big of value that was when Ben Tate got injured. So
we should talk about when your draft's going to take place on our next show, but that's all the time we have. We've gone over, actually. So this is Jeff Ellis.
And Steven Miranda.
We're
for
your fantasy football buddies.
First ever fantasy football buddies. Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
Rock on.
Bang.
Bye.
Championship.